David Brewster here, new episode of 3 for All. This is 3 Scott Henderson Licks from 1995, and I've had some requests to feature some of Scott's music. And for those of you that aren't aware, Scott Henderson is a monster musician, a legend of jazz and fusion guitar. He's been on the scene since the early to mid 80s, and he's worked with a bunch of important people. Started teaching at GIT, which eventually became MI. So he's an instructor, a performer, musician, very active and very respected on the scene. A legend of the guitar. So if you're a jazz or fusion fan, you probably know exactly who I'm talking about. But for your rock or blues guitarists out there that maybe don't know Scott's name, he's been around for a long time and he's worked with everybody. Chick Corea, Joe Zawinul, Steve Bailey, Dennis Chambers, Jeff Berlin. There's a whole bunch of people he's worked with either on stage or in the studio, in front of people or behind the scenes. But here's an image with some of the people that Scott's worked with in his career. So I met Scott Henderson back in the 90s when I was a student at AIM, and he came and did a clinic at the school. And I'd been to, a number of clinics before that, so I was expecting Scott to show up and show some licks and do some Q&A. But instead, when the clinic happened, it was literally tribal tech. It was him and Gary Willis and the drummer. They came in, they blew the roof off the school. Everybody was just so shocked and in awe. It was so loud and so intense, and it sounded so good. My brain was scrambled, like, wow. And not too long after, I attended AIM, he released the album Dog Party, like in the mid-90s. And when I heard that album, he blew me away all over again, because instead of the jazz fusion style, he was whipping out this authentic blues and blues rock, kind of Texas blues kind of sound. A little bit of, Stevie Ray Vaughan, but then also Scott's own, ideas and moves and stuff in there too. So good. So if you haven't heard Scott whip out the blues stuff, check out this image and check out these 3 albums. They'll blow you away. The licks in this lesson came from a live performance, I believe, in Israel in 1995 from Tribal Tech. And it was really good to see this footage. I'd never seen it before. And they sounded good. And, Scott was so into it. You could just tell. It was like, man, he was whipping out all this crazy stuff. So there are some very difficult licks in this lesson. I'm going to go ahead and say that now. And for some of you rock players out there, these finger twisting ideas that he's whipped out, they may really challenge your technique and your musical mind. And that's one thing about Scott. His musical mind is brilliant. The way he thinks and processes, information, theory, scales, modes, tonalities, and substitutions, and all this stuff. He's 10 steps ahead of everybody else, literally. But just a heads up, these licks are hard, but they're definitely good to work on. So here we go. The first lick's basically a standard rock bending phrase, so leave it to me to watch an entire Tribal Tech concert, and I located and pulled a standard rock bending lick from Scott Henderson. And we're basically in B-flat minor pentatonic, way up on the fretboard. This is kind of a common lick, but something like this. One more time. So we're basically in B-flat minor pentatonic, way up there. And we're starting on the root B-flat and then pulling off like this. Then you're going to grab that A-flat and bend it up to B-flat like this. And you're going to do that 4 times in a row. And then right there you're going to do... And I like the way Scott ended this phrase, where he does that kind of stutter between B-flat and A-flat. And grabs the flat 5 right there. So do that first phrase 4 times. And you're going to end it with that little stuttered kind of phrase. Which I guess that's not really a stutter, but you're staggering those notes. And then one more time all the way through. The next lick's a string skip legato phrase, and this is very unusual and interesting. It's also really hard to play, and I actually adapted a hybrid picking technique for this, and I had more luck with that than just picking. I think Scott was picking the whole time in the footage. But you can try it both ways, hybrid picking or pure picking. But the lick itself, something like this. It's really weird. Something like that. So we're starting right here. And you got this kind of pull-off hammer-on the G string occasionally, like this. When you get right there on the 6th and 8th fret, you're going to go back to this G sharp and C sharp and then do the pull-off hammer-on right there. Like this. And when you hit that B and E note there on the 7th and 9th fret on the G and the high E, you're going to do that twice. So everything up to that point. And right there, move up to the 10th and 12th fret. And then back to 7th and 9th. And then back to 10th and 12th, and then do the pull-off hammer-on. Like that. And then right here at the end. So all the way through it really slow. And then all the way through it at speed. It's a really bizarre lick, but I love it, especially in time with the band too. Check this footage out. The next lick's another unusual idea. This is an intervallic unison phrase, and this is very unorthodox, very stretched out, and blurry too. I'm not going to claim this is note for note, but it's something like this. One more time. So it's crammed and it's very unusual, like I said. So we're starting like this. Like that. And then you hear this. So you're literally pulling off that C to G. And then that G to F right there. And that's where the unison is. It's that G note right there. So really slowly, so it starts like that, and then you're going to do that again, and then you're going to double that C to G, and then just do it single, double it again, one more single, and then right there, and you're ending on that high D way up there. So really slow. And then that speed. It's really clunky and really unorthodox and weird. I'm definitely going to spend some time working on that lick, but I love phrases like that where it's unusual. It's definitely a big finger twister. But definitely a big challenge too. Cool lick. Here's a bonus lick from this footage, and it's this really unusual idea. It kind of reminds me of something you might hear coming from someone like Buckethead, but here it is coming from Scott Henderson, and it's this wide, intervallic, diminished bass string skipping idea. Very challenging, very unusual, but so cool. Something like this. One more time. So it's diminished based, and we're basically spanned, minor thirds right there along the G and the high E string. You're kind of starting on this B flat on the G, and also on that G note there on the high E, like this. So minor third on the G, and then minor third on the high E. And that's basically the pattern, and that's diminished. So I'm just going to walk through that one more time really slow right here. And that's kind of the pattern. And right there you're going to end on this C. Something like that. But a really unusual lick, like I said, it kind of reminds me of Buckethead. I think it's that intervallic, diminished sound. It's definitely a showstopper. That's a cool lick. That's going to wrap this episode of 3 for All with 3 Scott Henderson licks from 1995. And definitely, Scott Henderson's music is very hard to play. I've definitely tried to learn some tribal tech, and I just walked away scratching my head like, wow, that doesn't make any sense to me. But you have to realize, like, his mind, his musical mind is working so much faster and is so much more advanced than the average bear that he's going to leave you in the dust as far as figuring out, like, why did he do what he did? Like, and you're going to have a lot of question marks. Like, why did he... All right, he did this, and that feels like a pentatonic lick, and then he did this, and then he started doing that. And it's going to feel very odd and strange and foreign at first. But then once you learn some of his approaches, which I'm not going to sit here and admit, I don't have Scott Henderson's style down. These licks were hard for me, where it broke me out of my comfort zone. And I thought, especially that weird like string skipping thing, it was like, what in the world? But it's so cool. It's a big challenge. And I literally just learned these licks last night, and here I am shooting this video. So I'm going to keep woodshedding these licks and try to actually get some of these ideas under my belt. I just kind of had them, together enough that I felt to, make this video. But that's one thing, putting these lessons together. I'm learning these licks, quickly, shooting the video, and then I return and try to learn, and strengthen some of these ideas. And I know I'm going to totally do that with Scott Henderson, because these licks are all over the place, and they're really cool. So there's a lot you can learn from somebody like him. Definitely his educational material. Like I mentioned earlier, he's an instructor out at MI. So he can definitely play all this stuff. And he's one of those guys where he can teach you how to do this stuff too, which is so inspiring. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to the Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.